Hi everyone, Trina here, and this is 3.4, and we were getting ready to get into gnosis. More gnosis. What is gnosis? And gnosis, according to the ancients, was knowing God directly, having direct communication with the higher powers and the spiritual aspects of self. And I believe the communication and connection to our family. So I believe, not only do we exist in the higher realms, so does our family. So I find great support in our guides, our soul tribes, our soul family. I think that they provide us more protection and more guidance than we could possibly ever even imagine. So with that, we're going to get into some gnosis. What is gnosis? So, the Gnostics. The Gnostic scholars believed that the Gnostics were the first real students of the teachings of Jesus, for they taught that connection with God is possible through personal effort. But because Gnostic Christianity requires a more personal effort, it did not translate well with the masses. Many scholars, like Elaine Pagel, believed that this was the main reason the Orthodox Church was easier for people to accept. Simply by professing to believe in Jesus, you reserved your spot in heaven, even if your consciousness had not changed at all. The original Gnostic groups took their name from the Greek gnotikoi, or gnosis. In Greek, there are two words for knowledge: episteme, which means mental knowledge in the sense of information gathered, and gnosis, which is an understanding of the whole being. True gnosis is discovered through the eye of the heart that comes from the direct experience or intuitive knowing. It does not need an intermediary. Jesus sought to transmute this gnosis of the heart by reminding us of the light that burns within us all. As a result, the Gnostics were focused on transforming the mundane consciousness into the spiritual wakefulness. Wake up. That's why we hear all this. We're going to wake up. We're going to ascend. We're going to wake up. Wake up. That's what this is. It's into spiritual wakefulness. The Gnostic teacher Tao Malachi writes, Gnostic Christianity represents an inner tradition of secret knowledge, orally imparted from apostle to disciple through the discourse and initiation. At the heart of this inner tradition is a spiritual art of conscious living and conscious dying, the development of consciousness beyond the body, through which the initiate is able to consciously enter into higher planes of existence, both in this life and also in the afterlife. So I'm telling you guys, this stuff goes up. It goes up. It goes into other dimensions. So shoot high. Aim for 7 or above as the bells chime. Okay. So the result is the consciousness continuity of self-awareness through all states of existence, including what we call death, so that, in effect, there is no more death and no more need for physical incarnation. When we speak of enlightenment and liberation and self-realization or Christ consciousness, this is ultimately what is meant. According to the Gnostics, whoever has a direct encounter with Jesus personally has the same spiritual authority as the apostles. Whoa. Wow. Many of the early Gnostic writings included such encounters after the crucifixion, and I myself have experienced such visitations from Jesus. Before and after he asked me to write a book on his lost years. Secret teachings. Wow. Each time it had been life-changing. So it is entirely possible to have these kinds of genuine spiritual contacts. Oh, I can testify to that. Even after a master has left the earthly plane. Yes. Gnostic writings that share these kinds of encounters include the Gospel of Mary, the Apocryphon of John, the Sophia of Jesus the Christ, the Pistis Sophia, the letter of Peter to Philip, and the wisdom of Jesus Christ. Tau Malachi writes, at the outset, you must understand that the very nature of God is different than anything you might conceive, and that you, yourself, are not who or what you might think you are. Whatever your preconceptions, preconditions, or expectations, the reality truth continuum is yet more and cannot be contained or comprehended by the linear reasoning mind or your dualistic consciousness. God will forever be a mystery, the nameless and the unknown. To draw near to the Lord is a deeply troubling thing, for I must become no thing, empty of myself, that the Lord might enter and the Holy Spirit might fill me. God is no thing, N-A-I-N, and I must become no thing to enter into union with the Holy One Being. Gnostics believed that the soul is the true person and that the body is merely a container for experiencing the physical plane. Once the body is shed, the soul returns to the non-physical realms. Wow. Where angelic beings decide whether the soul is worthy of passing into a higher level or whether it must be born again. Whoa. This is exactly what I saw. The Gnostics believe that the soul is the true person and that the body is merely a container for experiencing the physical plane. Once the body is shed, the soul returns to the non-physical realms, where angelic beings decide whether the soul is worthy of passing into a higher level or whether it must be born again. Wow. Oh, I may have to grab the bottle. Come here, baby. Let me see that, Cody. Thank you. Oh, yeah, because that's loud. Okay, that is profound, and that is exactly what I saw. In Gnostic teachings, this process was known as the resurrection of the soul and the soul's permanent release into the higher realms of light. It was like an inmate being released from the dark, cold prison of unconsciousness that most of us live in. Wow. Wow. Joe Lewells, PhD, author of Rulers of Earth Secrets of the Sons of God, tells us such teachings would have been a major break from the Orthodox churches, both Christian and Jewish, and would have been the cause of great concern for both religious and political authorities. They would have also have exposed those who taught them. It would bring them into great danger. Gnostics believed that the origin of everything rests firmly in a supreme first principle. Oh, I got a crazy hair going on in here. So, okay, supreme first principle, a secret, hidden female divinity. Whoa. So, the Gnostics believed that the origin of everything rests firmly in the supreme first principle, a secret, hidden female deity, divinity, nameless, unknown, and unknowable. Only silence can express this original nothingness. Across that endless cosmic queen arose a ripple that revealed the divine self. The divine self brought into existence a complex and highly paradoxical state of descending hierarchies, each with its own level of spiritual awareness. That's what I saw. The doll inside the doll, inside the doll, inside the doll, inside the doll, all the way down into the third dimension. The highest state of being is manifested in the divine attributes of love, power through compassion, mercy, truth, grace, silence, humanity, and the goddess Sophia, wisdom. The Gnostics taught that from these 8 divine qualities sprang another 15 pairs, with a total of 38 emanations in all. At first, these attributes of God were not self-aware, but gradually they became conscious of their own existence, and they became the multitude of celestial forms and powers that we refer to as angels today. Some of the most powerful among them became aeons, the large overseeing divinities that govern the various dimensions and world ages. Many of these aeons are good and consciously aligned with the light. But since God gave each of these newly self-aware beings free will, each being has the power to govern its own destiny. Gnostics believe that, in a supreme act of love, the Creator gave all of us the gift of free will, and thus our own material universe came into being. Gnostic Christianity honored both the male and female aspects of Creator, originally taught by Jesus. Thus, it is a path of direct mystical realization brought about through the experience of the sacred marriage, spoken of by Jesus as the union of the bride and the bridegroom, symbols for the illuminated male and female aspects of Christ that lies within. This inner union brings us into the fullness of Christ consciousness and was at the very heart of the Master's teachings of the middle way. Balanced. The aim of this inner marriage was to awaken and balance the 2 hemispheres of the brain. This is what he would show me. We have to balance our mind. Wow. So awaken and balance the 2 hemispheres of the brain, the male and the female aspects of us all. This sacred union then allows us to embody the unified Christ within while still living in the physical world. This is what he was saying, become like Jesus. You came here to be like Jesus. This is exactly what he's talking about. While this union that opens up the spiritual eye, the marriage of these 2 parts must happen in the heart. Yes, This union is the key to bringing the conscious awareness into the world at large, and in essence, bringing heaven down to earth as we enlighten the worlds of matter. Holy smack daddy, that is exactly, exactly what he told me. I mean, spot on. Trisha, you rock. Wow. Okay. Gnostics believe that Mary Magdalene, whom they called the Lady Mary, was the foremost apostle, the partner and wife of Yeshua, and his female spiritual reflection. It was she, not Peter, who was the heir to the true apostolic succession. Thus, the Gnostic tradition has over 250 wisdom sayings attributed to Mary Magdalene that were collected during the many, many years of Mary's teachings in France and Britain that followed the crucifixion. Many of these sayings are every bit as profound as those attributed to Yeshua. I got to see one of the churches of the Virgin Mary and one of the churches attributed to Mary in Turkey. Wow, it was beautiful. So, for example, Mary taught, "Do not concern yourself with the darkness in the world, but banish the darkness that is in you, because it will bind you and destroy you if you do not cast it out of you." Mary said, "Once you come into the light and know the light is in you, you cannot continue to walk the way of darkness, lest you will fall into greater darkness. No, you must be walking in the light and enter the light and bring forth that light from within you, for only then will you be established in the way of life." Mary also taught, "When the risen Savior appears, look into his heart, and there you will see a threefold flame of Sophia. It is faith, hope, and love, the most powerful trinity in all existence. But inwardly, it is knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Ask the Lord to give you this holy flame, so that you might enter the kingdom and be perfected, as the Father and Son are perfect." And Mary taught, "All things exist in and with one another, and while they exist, they depend on one another. But when the time of dissolution comes, all things will return to their own roots and essence. What has come from above returns to the abode from which it has come, and what has come from below returns to its origins. What is between has never existed and will return to the great void." Finally, Mary taught, "The Divine Mother is light, and she is darkness. She is the saint, and she is the sinner. Angels and demons are images in her, as are the gods and all of the archons. Yet she is beyond all of these. No. Let me see. I think these pages might be stuck together. Okay. Know her in all things, and you will be free of bondage, even as the anointed is free." Wow, that was very powerful. Amazing. The pages of the book literally were stuck together. The Divine Mother is light, and she is darkness. She is the saint. She is the sinner. Angels and demons are images in her, as are the gods and all archons. Yet she is beyond all of these. Know her in all things, and you will be free of bondage, even as the anointed is free. Wow, that's profound. The way of teaching. The Gnostic path of establishing a direct connection with the divine meant that when the students met in fellowship, they would draw lots to see who took on the various roles. At any time, one might act as the priest or the priestess, reading scripture, giving instruction, or offering bread and wine to the assembly. This rotation of roles assured that no one got attached to the power and allowed spirit to work through each person by pushing the ego out of the way. As you might imagine, this fluid structure is very different from the fixed roles that we now know today of our priests, bishops, cardinals, and popes. But since the Gnostics were interested in activating the God self within, attachment to power was not important to them. In the 1st century after Jesus, when Mary Magdalene and her teachings were still well known among many Christians, women were allowed to perform the priestly functions in all Gnostic circles. This included the offering and the blessing, giving sacraments, teaching, and even sharing prophecy. All activities had once been the purview of both priest and priestess in the ancient worlds. The inclusion of women is liturgical priests so disturbed the male elders that the Tertullian, the early church father, wrote in horror, "These heretical women, how audacious they are! They have no modesty. They are bold enough to teach, to engage in argument, to enact an exorcism, to undertake cures, and they may be even able to baptize." Later, the Tertullian would also echo the sentiments of Paul, who wrote, "It is not permitted for a woman to speak in the church, nor is it permitted for her to teach, nor to baptize, nor to offer the Eucharist, nor to claim for herself a share in any masculine function, not to mention any priestly office. Emphasis, mine." The Catholic Church so strongly opposed the Gnostics. Every one of their secret texts, which Gnostic groups revered, was omitted from canonical collection and branded as heretical by those who called themselves Orthodox Christians. Wow. Since we now understand that these teachings included the wisdom sayings of both Mary and Yeshua, it now makes sense why they were suppressed by the Jews and the Romans, who claimed sole authority for men. By the time the process of sorting and the various writings ended, virtually all of the female and feminine imagery for God had disappeared from the Orthodox Christian tradition. As late as 1977, Pope IV forbade the ordination of women, saying that the Church does not consider herself authorized to admit women to priestly ordination. He went on to say that all priests must have a natural resemblance to Christ, meaning that the priest must have male genitalia. There was no mention that a priestess might resemble Mary, who symbolized the Mother Church herself. There's issues with the Mother Church stuff. Mother Church might come from another word in another entity. Mother Cece, I think. Mother Circe, Mother Circe, which comes from Kirk. It's crazy where these words come from. But Mother Church was about, like, literally the gingerbread story about she brings the children into the gingerbread house, offering them treats and locks them in the door, throws them in the oven and eats them. Yeah, Mother Circe, she did that to her followers. She would hypnotize people, entrance them to come to her home. She would put them under hypnosis, and then she would eat them. So this is actually the foundation of where we get the word Mother Church from. So it's a little tricky with this stuff. Got to look at all aspects. There's more to it than what we know. And look at all of it. Take all of it in and use what works for you. Throw the rest away. As we can see, however, one of the greatest legacies of the Gnostics was hidden wisdom teachings of Mary Magdalene, long equated with Sophia, the divine mother of wisdom. We will explore this story later when we consider the many important writings suppressed in the early centuries of the church. Okay, Gnostics' structure of initiation. Like other spiritual traditions, the Gnostics had an outer level of teaching and a deeper inner level. The first stage tested the moral habits, attitudes, and commitment of the novices. But there was often a long waiting period for the inner levels of initiation, sometimes as long as 5 years. So many aspirants were not willing to wait. Early Gnostic teachers used a whole series of techniques to help the novices become self-aware, including a process that now can be compared to in modern day as psychotherapy. Rather than just having people saved through baptism, they wanted the initiates to become enlightened. Several sources discovered at the Nag Hammadi described techniques called Zoroastrianos. Zostrianos, I don't know, which sets out a program of aesthetic practices and taught the student how to still the chaos of the mind and receive the visions of the light. Instruction passed orally from teacher to teacher, from student to student, and there were detailed expositions of the initiate's experiences, including prayers, chants, instruction, punctuated by the retreat into meditation. This suggests that the techniques of initiation for a training, the self-knowledge, which is knowledge of divine power within. Modern-day Gnostics, Tao Malachi explains, authentic mysticism and the Gnostic style of teaching is founded upon a play of illumination and bewilderment. And bewilderment is considered crucial to any actual development or progress in self-realization. Bewilderment invokes new questions, questions one would not have thought to ask before. One's question turns into a sacred quest for greater knowledge. The understanding and wisdom, a deeper penetration of the mystery that leads to a breakthrough into a higher degree of enlightenment, experience, or gnosis. This is how it works. You climb the ladder, and as you get more, you digest it, you meditate on it, you come into an awareness and a gnosis of it, and then you'll get more. And then it just builds and builds and builds. Today, so gods, goddesses, and the divine. Today, scholars contend that like the Hebrews and the Persians, the Gnostics believed that our world is ruled by negative forces called archons. Above these intermediate gods was the biggest false god of all, which they called the Demiurgos. It is this being's job to keep humans trapped in the world of illusions. He was also called the two-faced God, for he can seduce us with worldly riches or power or use fear and anger and hatred to get his way. Knowing that it is easy to get us trapped in fear-based beliefs, the gospel of truth actually tells the seeker that being caught in the illusions of the world is a sort of nightmare. But we can break free through self-illumination. The Gospel of Philip records that whoever achieves this inner gnosis becomes no longer a Christian, but a Christ. Wow. This is truth. In the dialogue of the Savior, Jesus teaches, bring in your own guide and your teacher. The mind is the guide, but reason is the teacher. Enlighten your mind. Light the lamp within you. Jesus also tells us that he comes as a guide for spiritual understanding. Yes. But when the disciples attains enlightenment, the two, the master and the student, have now become equal, even identical. The Gospel of Thomas relates that he who will drink from my mouth will become as I am. I myself shall become him, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him. All of this is hopeful, for it points to the way, understanding how we, as souls, can live in the world, but not be owned by it. Okay. Like the spiritual mystery schools of the past, Gnostics taught that the universe has many dimensions and levels, all formed by light and sound. Each dimension is governed by various deities who act as intermediaries between ourselves and the ultimate creator. Some of these archons are benevolent beings, while others are actively involved in trying to keep us captive in the world of illusion. This is the story behind the Gnostic gospel called the Sophia of Jesus the Christ. A Gnostic gospel between Yeshua and his disciples, in which he explains many things about the nature of the inner dimensions of the universe. The Gnostic Christians also believe that the God of the Old Testament is not the ultimate God. He is the Demiurge, a powerful being of darkness who keeps all who follow him bound in chain. However, like the devil card in the tarot deck, we will remain chained in the world of illusion through our own ignorance and free will. And if we will only awaken and realize our own divine nature, we will take back our power and break those chains whenever we wish. This is true. According to certain Gnostic beliefs, the lesser god of earth, the Demiurge, the Demiurgos, which was identified with Yahweh, also known as Io, or Io de Baoth, or Yaldabaoth, the being also identified with the God of the Old Testament by others. As we have learned in the earlier chapters, there were several names for the original creators of humankind, including El, singular, Elohim, plural, Jehovah, and Yahweh. And if Yahweh or Jehovah was actually the high God of the Anunnaki command, as discussed in earlier chapters, then Jehovah or Jove would be the ultimate expression of God. He would, however, fit the image of the old, white-bearded man seated on the throne, the Ancient of Days, depicted in many religions. The powerful Anunnaki god, who was called El or Enlil, would have also been very intimidating to the nomadic Hebrew people if he had advanced technology like thundering spaceships, billowing smoke and artificial light. all signs associated with religious figures like Moses, who met God on top of a mountain amidst asunder and smoke, and heard a voice speak to him, a brilliantly lit burning bush that did not burn. Spaceship. Certainly, among the Anunnaki gods, Jove was the highest secular authority, even if many of the advanced beings who were down here disagreed with his policies regarding the human race. Sumerian text reports that this Most High God was the cause behind the flood and who wantonly destroyed millions in the Great Deluge. From the Akkadian epic of the flood, the story of Atrahasis, which predates the story in Genesis by over 1,000 years, we read, "And the Lord said, I will destroy the earthling whom I've created off the face of the earth." In Genesis 6:5, we read that Jehovah says, "I will wipe out mankind whom I created from the face of the earth." Gnostics also believe that this false god, or Demiurgos, made every effort to keep this humanity immersed in ignorance. In Genesis 3:16 through 9, we read how Jehovah cursed Adam and Eve from eating from the tree of knowledge, deliberately trying to keep them from knowing right and wrong. The story of the Tower of Babel, we read, "And the Lord came down to see the tower and said, Look, the people are united and they have one language. Now nothing will stop them from doing what they take their minds to do. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they cannot understand one another's speech." Genesis 11:1 through 9. Jehovah also seemed to be against educating humans in many of the arts and sciences. This was one of the main reasons behind the story of the fallen angels. In Malcolm Godwin's book, Angels, an Endangered Species, the author lists many of the species that were the watcher angels taught to humankind meteorology, astronomy, astrology, herbal lore, metallurgy, and geography. While this knowledge was eventually dispersed into the world, the Lord Most High cast these angels down into the fiery pit and punished them for enlightening humankind. This story underlies the religious accounts of God versus Satan that we have heard for thousands of years. The Gnostics believed that this Demiurgos is committed to turning humanity away from the path of enlightenment by keeping us focused on survival and fear, physical desires, and material goods. Thus, the Demiurgos prevents us from learning about the divine spark that lives within us all. For this reason, the Gnostics did not associate God the Father from the Old Testament with the God of the Jesus in the New Testament. However, in some of the earliest Gnostic writings, Yahweh's name was still being used to express the concept of the all-knowing Father in a wising, more loving way. This undoubtedly how many devout Jewish people have used it throughout the centuries, expressing the true desire to connect with the source of all wisdom and love. In truth, the Creator does not care what name we use. The divine is far more interested in the purity, kindness, and devotion of our hearts, and in our ongoing quest for spiritual awareness and enlightenment. Valenetius, one of the earliest renowned Gnostic teachers, clarified this distinction between the gods and goddesses of the ancient world and the divine creator itself. The lesser gods, Valentinus said, reign over human beings as overlords of the earth, performing functions similar to those carried out by a military commander, creating civil and moral laws and judging harshly those who disobey. These gods, wrote, could either promote or constrain human development and were as varied in their approaches to life as human beings. These were the tall, long-lived Anunnaki gods, referred to in the Sumerian cuneiform texts of Nineveh and the other cities in Mesopotamia, as well as the legends of the Greek and Roman gods. Some of these overlords were very enlightened individuals who tried to pass their wisdom to human beings, while others were steeped in their own social, political, or ego-driven agendas, as human beings are today. This interpretation certainly fits many stories of the gods of legend, and may also explain the contradictory stories of Yahweh, the God of lightning, thunder, and punishment, who seemed alternatively love and hate who seemed to alternately love and hate his own people. Addressing this issue, Mary Magdalene says, "There are many gods and goddesses, which great power in all manner of spirits that have secret knowledge. Yet the power that is in you is greater, and the knowledge you possess is more rare and precious. I tell you, great and luminous beings shall come, seeking power and knowledge from you. See that you give to all who ask, and withhold only from those who come to steal. To those who receive, let worship the anointed of the God Most High." Here, Mary is speaking of the ultimate expression of the divine that lies within us all, human and extraterrestrial alike. It is clear that Yeshua, Mary, and the Gnostics realized the great creator of the universe as the root of all, and as the ineffable one who dwells within the monad, a single unity. He, she dwells in silence, since, after all, he, she was a monad. And no one was before him or her. The gospel of truth reminds us that the whole went seeking for the one, from who all come. The all was found to be the divine self, the almighty God, the unscrutable, undescribable, supreme. As we might imagine, Gnostics embraced the concept of both transcendence and eminence, focusing on the teachings how students enter the spiritual realm of light while still living in the body. They understood the true gnosis, and that it can only be acquired through the mystical experience. Gnostic tradition is ultimately something fluid and flowing, and does not stand still any more than anything else in life. Its essence is ongoing divine revelation, a continual emergence of a new gospel, which unfolds in the experience of those who practice this tradition. At their core, the Gnostics focused on the alchemical transformation of the great work. Yes, their mission was to liberate the soul from the confines of the illusion and to help the student find that direct connection with God for themselves. By teaching initiates to tune into their own inner wisdom, they freed themselves from the traps of the ego and came into harmony with their own divine nature. That is so beautiful. And that's the goal, guys. This is the great work, and this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is why so many are waking up right now, and so many are connecting to their own divine self. And through that, You're going to learn so much that you never knew was possible or potential. And when we come together with these possibilities and these potentials, we will bring them here through us and through activating that magical, beautiful trinity of faith, hope, and trust. And this is it. That's all it is. One who can believe it can do it. I have seen the power of our will, the power of your focused intent. And when it is combined with faith and trust, the knowing part, when you know it, I don't think that there's any force in this construct that truly has the power to stop it. So with that, that is gnosis, and that is direct knowing. So when you know what it is that you know, you literally have that power within you because you have anchored it within you through your own gnosis. So know this is the goal. To have gnosis, to know God directly, because that God is within you. And you have access to this power. And through that power, you become the Christ. And Christ, through him, all things are possible. So I love you guys. We will figure this out one day at a time. One new way being shown at a time. All this different information and different ways to look at our history and our foundations. It gives us an opportunity to become bewildered, to become confused. And when you become confused, this is when you have an opportunity to receive gnosis. So let these things confuse you, because through that confusion is the gift. So I love you all. Enjoy what we're uncovering together, and let it stir within you all these magical things that create gnosis through mystery and direct personal revelation and remembering. So I love you all. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.